The war did not begin for George S. Patton with gunfire. It began with contempt. Contempt for hesitation. Contempt for caution. And contempt for any enemy who believed survival could be negotiated. Long before American boots crushed European soil, Patton stood rigid before a massive operations map, its surface scarred with red and blue markers. His gloved finger did not trace front lines. It traced routes of escape. He was not asking where the enemy was strongest. He was asking where they would run when fear finally broke them. That was the difference. Most generals fought armies. George S. Patton hunted men. From the very beginning, Patton believed warfare had been misunderstood. Wars were not won by grinding forward inch by inch, bleeding equally on both sides. They were won by momentum, shock, and relentless pursuit. Break the enemy's will, never allow them to recover, and never, under any circumstance, let retreat feel safe. Patton had studied history with near obsession. Hannibal crossing the Alps. Caesar drove legions faster than his enemies could react. Napoleon crushed coalitions through speed and audacity. He absorbed their victories, but more importantly their ruthlessness. From them, he drew a brutal conclusion: mercy during movement was weakness. Hesitation was death. Speed was everything. When the United States entered World War II, the Army demanded discipline and order. Patton wanted something else entirely: bloodless annihilation through psychological collapse. He wanted the enemy exhausted, disoriented, hunted, and terrified long before the killing blow ever landed. Even his own officers feared him. He drilled his men without mercy. Units were forced to move faster than doctrine allowed. Tanks were driven until engines failed. Crews were pushed until mistakes became lessons, or casualties. Patton offered no apologies. War, he reminded them, would be far worse. He spoke openly about killing, not with cruelty but with certainty. The object of war, he told his soldiers, is not to die for your country, but to make the other bastard die for his. Behind the brutal language was a cold, calculated vision. Patton was not interested in attrition. He wanted to collapse. He wanted the enemy permanently off balance, always reacting, never thinking. By the time America prepared for its first major test in North Africa, Patton was ready. The hunt was about to begin. North Africa did not greet Patton with triumph. It greeted him with humiliation. American forces had been shattered by German armor at Kasserine Pass. Units broke under pressure. Commanders hesitated. Men retreated when they should have attacked. To Patton it was unforgivable. He was summoned not as a hero, but as a corrective punishment. When Patton arrived, discipline changed overnight. Helmets were worn at all times. Weapons were cleaned obsessively. Uniforms were inspected. Officers who failed were relieved on the spot. Fear returned, but this time it worked in America's favor. Patton did not rebuild morale with kindness. He rebuilt it with purpose. He restructured command so decisions were immediate and unmistakable. Orders were simplified. Movement became constant. He drilled one principle into every unit: attack first, attack fast, and never stop moving. When battle came, Patton unleashed his philosophy. He did not aim to seize territory methodically. He aimed to trap. German units found themselves struck from unexpected directions. Supply lines were severed. Retreat routes were harassed by mobile armor that refused to disengage. When the enemy pulled back, Patton did not pause. He accelerated. His tanks bypassed resistance, driving deep into rear areas, forcing German units to abandon equipment rather than risk encirclement. Infantry followed relentlessly, denying rest, denying regrouping. German officers later described the experience as being chased by something that never slept. By the end of the campaign, American forces were no longer reacting. They were dictating the tempo. Patton had proven his theory: war could be turned into a hunt, and the hunted made fatal mistakes. But success carried consequences. Patton's temper erupted publicly when he struck soldiers suffering from combat fatigue. The incident nearly ended his career. He was removed from frontline command, his future uncertain. Yet even sidelined, Patton's mind never left the battlefield. He refined the hunt. While Patton was temporarily removed from command, the Allies used him as a weapon anyway. The Germans feared him more than any other American general. Allied intelligence understood this and exploited it. Under Patton's name, they created an entire phantom army. Inflatable tanks, fake camps, phantom radio traffic. The enemy watched every move, convinced Patton would lead the invasion of Europe. Patton knew it, and he played the role flawlessly. He understood something many commanders ignored. fear could be manufactured. If the enemy believed he was coming, they would overcommit resources. They would wait in the wrong place. They would hesitate at the critical moment. When D-Day finally came, Patton was not there. And that absence was devastating. German divisions remained frozen in place, waiting for the real invasion that never arrived. By the time they realized the truth, the opportunity was gone. Soon after, Patton returned to active command, and this time he was unleashed. In France, he executed one of the fastest armored advances in military history. His forces moved so rapidly that supply lines could not keep up. Instead of slowing down, Patton adapted. He captured enemy fuel depots, redirected logistics mid-movement, lived entirely off momentum. German units dissolved under pressure. Retreat turned into flight. Flight turned into surrender. Patton was no longer fighting battles. He was chasing outcomes. By late 1944, Patton's reputation was absolute. His Third Army moved like a predator pack, separate units converging, cutting off escape routes, inducing panic. He rewarded initiative, punished delay, and encouraged commanders to think like hunters rather than defenders. Then came the Ardennes. When the Germans launched their surprise offensive, most Allied commanders hesitated. Patton did not. He pivoted his entire army north in the dead of winter, executing a maneuver many believed impossible. Roads were clogged with snow. Engines froze. Men marched through ice, exhaustion, and darkness. Patton drove them anyway. Because hunters do not wait for perfect conditions. His counterattack shattered German momentum. Once again, retreat became terror. Columns were harassed day and night. Escape routes vanished. The enemy was never allowed to breathe. As the war neared its end, Patton pressed harder than ever. Some called it unnecessary. Patton called it mercy, ending the war faster by denying the enemy the illusion of survival. He believed the hunt saved lives, but it left scars. By early 1945, the German army was no longer a unified force. It was a scattered herd. Patton saw it clearly from his command vehicle, binoculars raised as columns of prisoners shuffled past. These men had not been beaten in fair fights. They had been broken by exhaustion, speed, and relentless pursuit. They had been denied the one thing armies rely on when defeat looms: time. Patton's doctrine reached its purest form. He ordered advances not toward symbolic cities, but toward bridges, junctions, and crossroads, the arteries of retreat. His armored spearheads sliced through resistance, then turned inward, sealing pockets before the enemy realized they were trapped. The Germans gave it a name: the rolling nightmare. American tank crews rarely shut down their engines. Infantry slept in stolen hours. Officers made decisions on the move, knowing delay meant escape for the hunted. Patton praised speed over neatness, initiative over obedience. Critics accused him of recklessness. Patton answered with results. Entire divisions surrendered without major engagements. Ammunition dumps were captured intact. Commanders were seized mid-retreat, maps still open on their tables. Patton believed he was shortening suffering, but the cost showed on his men's faces. They were no longer wide-eyed soldiers. They were hardened pursuers. The hunt had reshaped them. As Allied forces pushed deeper into Germany, Patton's aggression unsettled his peers. Political leaders worried about optics. Other generals urged caution. Patton dismissed both. He believed hesitation at the end of a war was the cruelest mistake of all. He pushed east relentlessly. Villages fell in hours. Resistance collapsed, or was bypassed entirely. His columns flowed around strongpoints, leaving confusion behind. The enemy was never sure where the main force was, only that it was coming fast. Yet victory revealed something darker. Patton spoke openly about future wars. He saw new enemies forming even as the old one died. His words unsettled those who wanted peace, not preparation. When the war ended, the hunt stopped, but Patton did not. Without motion, without pursuit, he seemed unmoored. The war had validated his philosophy. Peace had no place for it. Within months, George S. Patton was dead. Not in battle. Not hunted. Gone in silence. History still struggles with George S. Patton because he refuses to fit neatly into moral categories. He was brilliant and brutal, inspirational and terrifying, a saver of lives and a spender of them. But one truth remains undeniable. Patton changed how modern warfare was fought. He proved that speed could be decisive, that pressure could replace prolonged slaughter, that an enemy denied rest, direction, and hope would collapse faster than one slowly destroyed. He turned war into a hunt. And whether celebrated or condemned, the method worked. Long after the guns fell silent, military academies studied his campaigns, not for his speeches but for his movement, his relentless refusal to allow the enemy to recover. Patton never believed war could be humane. He believed it could be ended faster, and in the ruthless calculus of global conflict, that belief reshaped history.